Hello all, welcome back to the Hill of Roses, where we come once again to celebrate the social left. We have a real treat for you guys today. We're kicking off a brand new initiative where we're bringing in some of the folks from the community so we can hear from real people and not just the pundits of every day. So with me today, we have Ian, Justine, as well as Leo. Do you guys want to just go around the circle one time, give us where you're from, full name, and what you do? So, Ian, do you want to just kick us off?
Yeah, sure. Why not? My name is Ian. I'm from Montana, and right now I'm just a student, and I work part-time as a financial advisor's assistant. So, yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Glad to have you. And I've actually done that myself in the past, so that's cool to hear. So,
Yeah.
next, Leo, want to introduce ourselves to the crowd?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Leo. I'm from Jersey, just like you, John, but I'm from the cooler half of Jersey, so South Jersey. But I'm like 2 minutes outside of Philly, and I'm a civil engineer, and yeah, that's about it.
Very cool. Justine, want to finish this off?
Yeah, hi, I'm Justine Colding. I'm from Melbourne, Australia, and I'm an author and a blogger.
Very cool. So, today, the theme of tonight's episode is really the debate. I think it's an unavoidable fact that it's consumed at least the American ecosystem. Justine, correct me if it's wrong, if it also dominated Australia too. But I think it's an inescapable topic for the day, so I think there's no better place to start. What do you think?
Yeah,
Okay. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is even before the event began, what were some of your expectations heading into the night? So we're gonna have everyone be able to just respond once and then actually be able to respond to each other. So just Ian, what was your first thought heading into the night of what you were looking to get from night one?
Okay, so I thought Biden was going to be a lot stronger when it came to the debate, um, but you know how that turned out. Also, I knew that Kamala Harris was going to be really strong. Watching her town halls previously, it seemed like she was really trying to get that left vote. So I was kind of expecting her to kind of parrot Bernie's talking points from 2016. And yeah, I was expecting Bernie to come out strong, and I wasn't really expecting him to be very, how should I say this, aggressive. I was kind of expecting him to be a little more reserved than other candidates, and yeah, overall, I didn't really come in with much expectations, so that's kind of my thoughts.
Yeah, I gotta agree. It was a lot of what are we gonna get? Making predictions might have been a fool's gamble in these debates. Leo, did you agree with what Ian was saying, and did you have any other things that you were thinking coming in?
Yeah, yeah, similar. Where I didn't have many expectations for the front runners. I knew what am I saying? But the ones who I was really expecting a lot from were Tulsi and Yang, who I've been huge fans of from the beginning, and I was hoping that they would really make an impression, and yeah, that's about it. And Tulsi, I I think she did a pretty good job, and then Yang I was really disappointed by, but luckily he's almost at 130,000 donors, so he has a second or third chance to really make an impression on people.
Yeah, I agree. Those were two people I definitely had my eyes on because I think they were real wild cards coming into the debate. Justine, what was your thought coming into the debates, especially coming from a perspective of being outside of our country?
well, the person I most wanted to shine was Tulsi Gabbard, and she pretty much did that when she whacked Tim Ryan, whoever that guy was,
Yeah.
for six with the foreign wars. Um, but I also wanted Andrew Yang to shine because I wanted your politics influences our politics. Like pretty much we verbatim go what you do, and the problem is we've got a right wing government across here. So well, I wanted some really bold left wing ideas, and Yang's UBI was what I really wanted on the table. So
Yeah.
So those were the two people that I was hoping to shine.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people, especially from the more independent parts of the Democratic leanings, that were hoping for a good performance from those two. And yeah, I totally understand your sentiments for Australia. We just did an episode discussing Scott Morrison's surprise win within Australia. They had at least some electoral things that made it even more shocking than how we got Trump. So yeah, that was definitely interesting going on.
The whole of Australia was surprised by Scott Morrison winning. So
Yeah. So, Ian, I gotta ask, what candidates do you think you just had your eyes on as being serious people, that had any chance of performing to be a contender?
I'd have to say Elizabeth Warren right off the bat. Like I mentioned Kamala Harris earlier, I think that she's probably going to be kind of the centrist leaning candidate that goes up against whoever wins between Tulsi, Bernie, or Elizabeth Warren. So I think that the left should take her very seriously. Also, Cory Booker did a very good job on debate night 1, and I think he's really. I think you're gonna start seeing his poll numbers increasing, and I wish Andrew Yang did get a little bit more time because I think that there are some good ideas with his UBI. I'm a little skeptical about his plan specifically, just because it doesn't seem like he's going for supplemental UBI, where it would kind of be added to the other social safety net programs we had. So yeah, I think that the ones definitely to be taken seriously are Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, and Andrew Yang for the most part.
Okay. How about you, Leo? Who going in do you really see as the contenders within this group?
Right. So I agree with most of what Ian said. Coming in, I had five people who I thought were pretty much the only ones with any shot, aside from Tulsi and Yang, which might have been more wishful thinking on my part because I love them.
Yeah.
But the 5 I had so it's the top 3 in the polls right now. So Biden, Bernie, and Warren were the A tier, and then I think Mayor Pete Buttigieg and then Kamala had a really good shot of kind of if Biden fails, which I really felt it was going to happen, they could kind of go into his center lane, and I think they're really good at speaking and making people believe what they're going to say. So they were the ones I really thought. So those 5 definitely.
Yeah, I gotta say, I agree with a lot of those choices you both named so far. Justine, who were you thinking could actually be a contender? I know you were saying you wanted Tulsi to do well, but clearly she was one of the people who were needing to grow. Did you consider her a contender going in? And was there anyone else that you thought was a big contender that we needed to look for?
Just the top guys in the polling, like Bernie, Biden, and Warren. But I also thought that Yang would actually, because of his tech background, would actually shine.
Yeah, it was a shame he didn't get as many questions to actually be able to show so much that he has on his policy. He's one of the people with the most lengthy platform, and so him getting 2 questions all night, and one of which was a little suspicious, just asking him China, was a little interesting. But
Yeah.
yeah. So the next thing I just wanted to know is, what do you guys think were the really big distinctions between debate night 1 and debate night 2? And first, did you guys watch both nights?
Yeah, every second.
Yeah, I'd have to say I watched both debates. The first debate, I'd have to say, was a little bit more boring than the second debate. It seems like the candidates were much more aggressive on the second debate. There were times where I just kind of lost, where I wasn't really paying attention as much during debate night 1, and I was scrolling through Twitter and stuff like that. So I think definitely debate night 2 is a lot more interesting, and I think that The news cycle was definitely more focused on debate night 2 rather than debate night 1.
Yeah, I could see that. What do you think, Leo? What were you thinking was the real distinction between the two nights?
Right. Well, going off what Ian said, I actually thought it was the opposite. I thought the first night was a lot more interesting. I don't know if that's because by the second night I was kind of burned out because it was all so similar and like I was kind of getting bored of it with all the kind of dead weight candidates. But I thought like the first night I don't know, for some reason I was a little more engaged and I feel like it was less of a mess surprisingly. But but yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, I agree. I think we had a lot of fatigue after night one,
Yeah.
potentially with the mess ups from MSNBC's part in actually controlling the crowd. So, what do you think, Justine? What were your distinctions between the two nights?
Well, I actually only watched I watched like 20 minutes of the first debate. But then my computer crashed on me, so I had to
Oh, I know that
watch the
story.
rest of it.
I had my stream crash as well that night, so I missed a little bit of the middle, but I got the beginning and the end, so I can empathize there. Did you see the full night too?
Yeah, I saw the full night too, and my impression was the second night was better because because it was all the front runners, the top guys in the polls, except for Warren being on the stage together. It kind of had a bit more fireworks between them. So, and with the other guys interjecting a lot more, trying to get in the stage, you kind of got a bit more funny moments. So,
Yeah, I think that's definitely for sure. I think one of the things that I found interesting between the two nights is really how much crossfire there was. I think, yeah, we had a couple moments like we were mentioning of Tim Ryan versus Tulsi, but the crossfire in the second debate between Kamala taking down Joe Biden, Eric Swalwell confronting Pete Buttigieg to fire his police chief on stage, everyone going after Bernie Sanders on the socialism topic. I think that was one of the bigger, clear distinctions is people trying to say, who am I at all? Because this was almost a kiddie table debate, night one. And night two was, okay, you know who I am. I'm aiming to take some others down here. Do you think that we really hit that media narrative of kiddie debate versus the grown-up debate like we had as a problem in the Republican debates last cycle?
Yeah, I'd have to say that it seemed like very much of a kiddie debate versus, the big boys debate, the adult table. Um, I mean, when you have Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and Bernie Sanders, and Pete Buttigieg on the same stage, a lot more people are going to pay attention to that. The media has definitely been pushing Pete Buttigieg for the most part, as well as they kind of like Kamala Harris too. So I mean, I think that like the average person watching, not somebody who's very invested in politics, was probably more excited for the first night or for the second night rather than the first night.
Yeah. What do you think, Leo? Did they have that much parity between them, or was it really distinct?
Um, I actually thought it was I liked the way they did it, where they put the night with the one that had the least front runner candidates. They made that first, because then you would be more excited for it. So then you were excited for that just because it was the first one they did, and then you were excited for the second night as well, because it had like 4 out of the 5 runners. So I think they did a decent job of making it not as unparalleled, I guess.
Yeah. What do you think, Justine? Were they comparable debates, or was there such a difference in quality?
For me, there was a big difference in quality because on one stage they did try their hardest, but you were never going to get a fully 100%. level playing field, just with the two calibers of the people, like the Swalwells and the Hickenloopers. We were going dry down the field, no matter where they were put. So,
Yeah.
and even you tried splitting up the top cars, you would still have problems. So, I still think the second debate was way better than the first.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think that ended up having the more entertainment value between the two. Though I may be biased, as I said, I did miss a part of that first debate because of stream issues. So, what do you guys think? Do you think these debates reflected well on the Democratic Party as a whole? Let's start with Ian. What do you think? Was this good for the party?
Oh man, it is such a mixed bag. I think that, like for instance, like Beto, being asked the question, do you support like a 70% marginal tax rate on the highest earners? Yes, no. It was kind of a yes or no question they asked, and then he didn't answer the question in English, and then didn't answer the question in Spanish. And then when he was pushed to answer the question, he kind of just waffled and said like, well, I think that we should have a fair tax rate. I don't think that resonates with anybody. Also, I mean, for the most part, I don't know if it looked very good. I think a lot of Republicans, I think Fox News is going to have a field day with this. I think a lot of the right-wing media in general is going to have a lot of things to say about these debates. Bernie was not aggressive enough whatsoever, and he's, I'm definitely rooting for Bernie in the primary, so it didn't seem like he kind of had that spark that he had in 2016 during the debate. I think Tulsi, for the most part, throughout the first debate, did not really have she wasn't really performing well. But at the end, she kicked ass, and she totally dunked on Tim Ryan when it came to American imperialism. So, yeah, I think that for the most part, like Joe Biden kind of getting outed as like a pro-segregation, helping with busing was not like a good look for the Democratic Party in general. And they really need to like take out some candidates. I'm excited for the July debates because, people need to be polling at like above 2%, and they need to have like 130,000 donors or something like that. I think that you're kind of going to start to see the real, all-stars of the Democratic Party in the next debates.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I'll make you answer this question straight. Good, bad, or neutral for the party, debates 1 and 2 of the nights?
I'd say neutral overall. It was kind of like a roller coaster. There were some really good moments and some absolutely horrendous moments.
Okay. What do you think, Leo? Was it a good night for the Democratic Party?
I would go along with what Ian was saying and said it's definitely neutral. Cause I think no matter what happened, it was going to be neutral. Cause no matter what anyone says, Republicans are going to make fun of it, and then the lefties like us, we're just focusing on like individual candidates. So I guess the people you really want to look at are the independents, and I think it really depends. I think the main thing that I got out of this debate was that most of the candidates were kind of taking on Bernie's platform, and it was very left versus like the last 20 years or so where it was very centrist. So, and on that, I guess it really depends on who's watching whether that's good or not.
Fair enough. I echo your sentiment. It was definitely a more left-focused conversation. What do you think, Justine? Was it good for the Democratic Party to have these two debates happen like this?
Actually, I think it was good because it shows that the party has a lot of ideas, and don't worry about the right bashing. That's actually a good thing. I like to steal this phrase from the Vincent McMahon, the WWE guy. He said, "Any publicity is good publicity." So those guys putting your name out there will get your name out there. And showing that you're not afraid to air stupid ideas shows you're willing to actually engage with the ideas. So that's why I think it was actually a good night.
Yeah, I agree. I generally currently am thinking it was a net positive. I think the ideas argument is a very sound one here because, as we were all saying kind of throughout, the conversation at least has shifted to the left a little bit. Regardless of how chaotic it was, the actual ideas that are being presented are better ideas than they were in the past. What do you guys think is really some of the moments that is actually going to play into the general election? Do you think any moments from these first debates are going to get pulled back for the general?
Oh, right off the bat, if Biden wins the Democratic primary, I think that all of the skeletons in his closet are going to come out. All of the his record is going to be exposed, and that might not be a very good thing, especially when independent voters are seemingly like very far left. But yeah, and I also think that Bernie Sanders won both debates. I think that the ideas that kind of won were the ideas that Bernie Sanders pushed in 2016.
So, would you say that there's one specific moment that Trump or even in the general election debates might be called back on from these debates?
I don't know. I guess it's too soon to tell. There might be something that comes out in the next debates that's, even worse for some candidates or better for some candidates. It's really tough to say right now. I'm kind of agnostic on that question.
Yeah, that's fair. What do you think, Leo? Is there anything that's going to be unique and necessary to focus on going into the general election from these debates?
From these debates?
Yeah, just from these debates.
Okay. I can't really think of anything right now. I think we're just gonna have to see the debate season play out, honestly.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Anything jump out at you, Justine?
Nah.
No. Yeah, I think one of the interesting things, just seeing Trump try to react to the two debate nights, is I think he is really going to try and go immigration as the topic once again. Obviously, it's still his bread and butter, but him calling out that every person on stage raised their hand when it came to providing illegal immigrants benefits, I think he's going to lean hard into that once again. And I think that moment of just raising hands is going to be something he'll try to use. So, What do you guys think would be probably the most entertaining moment of the night? You don't have to agree with the people, but there were some gaffes here and there, wise speeches that maybe are a little too kooky for the mainstream. What was your funniest moment of the night?
Oh man, for me it's a tie between Marianne Williamson talking about how we need to combat hate with love. I thought that was awesome. Also, Pete Buttigieg giving the death stare to, I think it was Eric Swalwell. I thought that was, oh my god, that was so good. I loved that.
What do you think, Leo?
So I have three stood out to me that I'll remember for a while. First, like 5 minutes into the first debate was Beto. I knew Beto was gonna be really cringy and try really hard. But I didn't think it would be that glorious though. Where he just started, he gets asked the question, doesn't answer, just starts speaking in Spanish, speaking nonsense in Spanish. I'll always remember that. That was awesome. And then the other one, and during that moment, Booker's look at him. So that's about it. I always remember that.
What do you think, Justine? Was there anything that got you laughing on nights 1 and 2?
Two things. Number one, the Marianne Williamson, I'm going to harness the power of love. But also something that Pete Buttigieg said, you probably missed it in the Medicare for All debate. He said, England has a private health insurance system. Yeah, that got me laughing.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I remember that too. Yeah, unlike even what we're proposing with Medicare for All too, they have it on both sides of the equation. You know, public health care being provided through insurance as well as actually the doctors in the hospitals. Yeah, you'll have supplemental above that, but They are not a private healthcare system.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
they're
about as far
protecting
as you can get from
NHS
private.
pretty hard. So, what do you guys think were some of the strategies that were interesting that the candidates used during the nights? Was there anything that stood out to you as a strategy going in that they used? What do you think, Ian?
Right off the bat, I mentioned this earlier, but the fact that Bernie Sanders' rhetoric has completely taken over the Democratic Party, which I think is awesome. I think that the fact that all of these candidates are pivoting to the left like really hard is something that we should all kind of look at and think like, wow, we did it. This was our goal. Even if Bernie Sanders didn't win in 2016, in 2020, our goal would have been to change the dialogue. So I think that was very awesome. Um, with Kamala Harris specifically, I think that she was like super aggressive, and that kind of I see being aggressive as being passionate and um, kind of not taking no for an answer. So I thought that her strategy of just like holding Biden's feet to the fire was really good. A lot of the candidates like Beto and Buttigieg, I don't really remember anything they said, honestly, because they didn't really have anything memorable to say. Um, and I think Yang said that his mic was cut off, and I don't know. I don't know if it was actually cut off or whatever, but I think him just kind of like standing there and not really saying anything was actually kind of a good thing for him because he wasn't seen as somebody that was negatively affected by the debate, and I think that'll be very good for him in the future. I think that when he gets a chance to talk and there's less candidates on the stage, overall that'll be a net positive for him. So I really liked the aggressive rhetoric that candidates were using in both debates.
Yeah, I particularly think it was super interesting. Even if we do say that Yang's mic may have been cut off, which there is some video that can provably show this so far, I
Okay.
think he didn't interject nearly enough to really show this point through. Even if his mic was cut off, show it once or twice. Maybe it was a technical error the one time. It becomes a conspiracy if you are more willing to interject over and over. But he didn't even try to do that. What do you think, Leo? Was there any strategies that the candidates used that you thought was just interesting?
Yeah, pretty. What I took out of it was pretty much exactly what Ian said with how most of the even centrist candidates kind of presented themselves as left. I thought that was really interesting. In particular, Kamala, like I never heard Kamala really campaign before, so I was really impressed like by her charisma and timing and all that. And then another one who stood out to me was De Blasio's aggressiveness and his I guess fake leftism you can call it.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, I think that
so
was definitely interesting, and I think Kamala definitely charismatic. I think the one thing to get more of the left-leaning base is can you trust her? And I think some of the interesting things from that debate was, she was the only other person besides Bernie Sanders raising her hand when it came to abolishing private health insurance, and then the next day, like she had done during her CNN town hall, she immediately walks it back. So I think
Yeah.
we're all going to be impressed every time we see Kamala on stage. It's those moments after the debate stage that gets everyone a little bit nervous. What do you think,
Absolutely.
Justine?
you gotta keep that in mind.
Do you think there was any noteworthy strategies that we should mention here beyond Kamala, beyond Yang? Was there anything outside of those two that were noteworthy that people went for?
I think Gillibrand's strategy was kind of noteworthy because she was doing the Bernie, but she kind of went further on the corruption stuff, so that kind of pushed the envelope on that.
Yeah, I actually found Gillibrand to be one of the most interesting people of the night. I don't know if I would have called her the top performer, but she was in that top group because I think you're right. The corruption angle was a big thing she said, just we have to actually overhaul the system. But she gave specific legislation she had on multiple issues. and she tried to be, in an interesting way, a connector constantly between two people, like trying to bring the people on stage together. So I thought that was super interesting as well. Do you think there's any of the people on stage that needed a dramatic change in the way they approach debate strategy? What do you think, Ian?
Oh, right off the bat, Bernie needs to be more aggressive. He needs to call out people on their records because a lot of people, Marianne Williamson actually said this. She was like, you guys are talking about healthcare and talking about how we need universal healthcare, but I haven't seen you guys talking about it until you got on stage today. That was awesome. And she also called out interventionism, American imperialism, I should say, in Latin America, which I thought was awesome, and that needs to be talked about for sure. But yeah, I think overall Bernie Sanders needs to be more aggressive. He needs to hold people's feet to the fire, and he needs to call them out on their record because he has been the most consistent candidate on the that's running this election season. Um, I think I think Biden just needs to drop out. I don't know. He has not been performing well. Yesterday, the Gravel Teens tweeted, somebody needs to drag Joe Biden's body off of the stage. I mean, he did really bad. I don't see him having any winning strategy whatsoever in this. I don't know if there's not a way that he can change his rhetoric. His record is just too horrendous. I think Tulsi Gabbard also needs to be much more aggressive. And overall, I just think like the lefty candidates like Yang, Tulsi, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie, they just need to be more aggressive. They need to hold people's feet to the fire and call them out on being inconsistent.
Yeah, that makes sense to me as well. And I echo your sentiments. I still cannot fathom how Joe Biden is in the top of the polls. It blows my mind every time I see that. There are just clearly better options. Like it really feels manufactured. But Leo, what do you think? Was there any relevant people that need to take a major course correction in terms of their debate strategy?
The one I wouldn't say major course correction, but with Tulsi, I think she needs to branch out in that every single question she would say how she's in the military, and I think she needs to get away from that to avoid being pigeonholed. I think because she has a lot more to offer than that. And then Bernie, I think like most of the questions he could have had better answers. Like when they asked about what after I think it was Hickenlooper blasted socialism, and then I think Bernie had a question after that, and I think what he should have said was basically we don't really want, we just want what they have in like Norway and all that. And so I just think on some questions Bernie could be a little bit better, more like articulate at getting at like what makes him so popular and successful.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that sentiment. I think he needs to be a little bit more specific. He seems to be kind of going back to the same playbook over and over, which I think people already kind of had that vision of him. I don't think he really added anything. He just showed who he was again. So what do you think, Justine? Was there any course corrections that were needed from the actual worthwhile candidates to consider?
No, just what you said on Bernie and Tulsi. Just make sure they're more aggressive and that. So there wasn't really anything else you can do with those guys.
Yeah, I think I echo all of your sentiments here. Being aggressive is the only way you're going to have a shot on the stage. You need to, in their system, call people out so you have some crossfire talk and you get more speaking time. That's just the nature of these debate segments. When they're not going to control it and say, okay, your time's up, your mic's cut off, like they did maybe for Yang or maybe not for the Yang. We need to have people who are aggressive and are going to make their own opportunities rather than just waiting for them to occur. So the next thing I just wanted to talk about, speaking of how the debate was kind of maybe mismanaged, Was there any topics that you think was really lacking from the conversations, policies you wanted to see be brought up but weren't brought up? Ian, what do you think?
Definitely climate change. They did not spend enough time on climate change, and I think when it comes to young voters, that's a very important issue. Also, foreign policy and American imperialism. We need to start talking about why we're actually trying to go to war with Iran. The mistakes that we've made in the past. I think foreign policy. A lot of people in 2016 were saying that Bernie is very weak on foreign policy, but I actually disagree with that. I think Bernie Sanders is very strong on foreign policy, and he has a good record of being very diplomatic. And I mean, even when he was mayor of Burlington, he was traveling across the world, being very diplomatic overall. So I think that foreign policy, climate change, they need to talk about wealth inequality more, but in the sense of like talking about how we can fix things, because I see a lot of candidates recognizing the problem but not really giving a solution. And I think for the most part, somebody like Donald Trump, who also recognizes the problem, he did a lot of they took your jobs rhetoric. They're shipping your jobs across to China and stuff like that. I think people need to start talking about wealth inequality a lot more.
Yeah, I tend to echo that sentiment. There was definitely a lot of you gotta have fair rules of the road. People at the top of the rung have been getting too much of the income share, so there was a lot of pointing at the problem, but then there wasn't a lot of follow-up of how do you actually solve the problem. So I agree with you there. Income inequality needs to be something they go more into depth. Leo, what do you think? Is there any policies that they were really lacking in the conversations between the knights?
Right. So, like very specifically, I think Bernie mentioned it once. Is what's happening in Yemen, where we're arming Saudi, and they're doing they're killing all these innocent civilians. What Saudi Arabia is, and I think just in general we don't talk enough about that, and the fact that Congress was actually able to pass a War Powers Act to get us to stop being involved, and then Trump vetoed it. And I think that's one of the very worst things that Trump has done, but absolutely no one talks about it. They talk all this crap about Trump, but they never mention that. And I think that's one of the more important things. So definitely that, and shout out to Bernie for actually mentioning it.
Yeah, I 100% echo your sentiments. Back when I did my episode on impeachment, that was one of the top ones I brought up as a reason to do it. Violating existing law on the books. This was just a reinforcement. It wasn't even putting new laws. It was just saying, can we follow our own laws? And he said, nope. So I think we definitely need to say constitutional power of war needs to go back to Congress and not in the executive branch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Justine, was there anything else that you think was truly lacking in terms of the substance of the night?
Coming from a foreign policy outsider perspective, pretty much you needed to talk more about foreign policy. It's not just those wars, but the way you treat your allies, not just Europe. But here in Australia, I'll give you a good example. We've got a treaty with you guys called the ANZUS Treaty. And this will blow your mind, but Australia is obligated to go to war to protect you guys, but you're not obligated to come protect us if we get in.
Oh my God.
Wow. I didn't even know about that one. Oh, that's crazy.
That's a huge part of Australian politics. So not hearing you guys talk about your foreign policies like, oh, crap, what's going on? So
yeah, I totally agree. I think too much of when we talk about foreign policy ends up in conversations of just solely war and trade. And I think we need to think about it more as a holistic approach of how do you work with people to form these coalitions. Because, yeah, one mention of bringing people together on this global stage, and this will be rare for me give credit to Joe Biden, is when we actually got the Paris Climate Accords. They didn't go far enough, but getting all the people on the table to actually work on something of that scale was novel. So I think, yes, we definitely need to talk about how we interact with the world. So the final topic I wanted to go into before we get to what I call the 3v3 rounds, which is just going through a couple multiple choice opinion questions from the policy platform I have out there, is I just want to know, let's go through top 3 from the debates, bottom 3 from the debates. Ian, what do you think? Who were your top 3 first?
Top 3, Kamala Harris obviously killed it in the second debate. I think Elizabeth Warren was really strong in the first debate, so those are my top 2. The third one, it's kind of a mixed bag for me. I would probably say Bernie Sanders. He didn't do anything to hurt his chances, and I thought that his closing statement to the debate was amazing, and it was exactly what he needed to say.
Yeah, I kind of echo similar sentiments around Bernie. I think he closed really strong. Leo, what do you think? Who were your top 3 from the debates?
I think number one, and it wasn't even close, is Kamala. I still don't like her personally, but with how she her first impression to casual political watchers was, I think, was incredible. And another thing that's kind of interesting that I've realized is one of the reasons that Biden was so such a favorite was because as they say, electability. And I think with what Kamala did to Biden is that she showed that she can stand up to Trump, and that might and that I think that could show to a lot of people that she's electable and can beat him, and that might siphon off a lot of Biden's followers to her. And then 2, I had Bernie, in based on what we said before, in that basically every most of the candidates were kind of following along what he did 4 years ago. I don't think he had an amazing debate. He had some great moments, like the end, like you guys said, but just the fact that this debate was kind of his platform. And then third, I would actually pick Castro, because he's someone who I didn't really have on my radar at all. I never really thought about him, but I was kind of impressed by him, especially I think a lot of more casual political followers would be impressed as well, in that he came across as very well spoken and knowledgeable, and kind of like a Pete Buttigieg type, and like a little more aggressive Pete. And I think it kind of vaulted him up to that fringe tier behind Kamala, Bernie, Warren, and Biden, where so you have Pete, Castro, and I would even say Booker have very, very slim chances now. So that's more than he had going for him before. And I'll say that Warren and Buttigieg, they didn't hurt. They were fine. They didn't hurt their standing, but they didn't really help it either.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think a lot of sentiment at least went to Castro's way, and when you can get no name to any chance, that's something, because this debate is really exposure 101 to most of these candidates. So, Justine, what do you think? Who are your top 3 from the debates?
Number 1, Bernie Sanders. He personally didn't have he had an all right night, except for his speech at the end. But because his ideas were the ones mentioned, he kind of won the night. He didn't have to do much. 2, I would say Kamala Harris. I wasn't expecting anything from her, but her performance was brilliant. I was even considering voting for her, considering going, she might become the front runner. But then Aaron Director went, nah. And number 3 was Kirsten Gillibrand. Again, she surprised me with her rhetoric and all that, and her willingness and forthrightness. So,
yeah, I tend to agree. Those were some noteworthy people in my mind too. So now let's just go again right through. What do you think? Bottom three. Who were the worst of the worst from the two nights? Ian, what do you think?
Okay, so I think this is fairly obvious that Joe Biden was absolutely horrendous. He had the worst of the two nights. He did terribly. He even like Kamala called him out on something, and he started to talk about states' rights in a Democratic debate. Oh man, that's a yikes for me, dog. Um, Also, I didn't really get anything meaningful from Beto. I don't think he had any really memorable moments, and the memorable moments that he did have, it was because he was very cringy. Also, I don't know. I don't know who my third would be. I guess it would be I don't really have a third. I think those two
John
just
Delaney.
yeah, John Delaney, yeah. John Delaney did have a really geez, yeah. He did have a bad night. So, yeah, those are my bottom three.
Yeah. What do you think, Leo? Who's in your bottom three?
I think number one by far was Beto because he completely tanked his chances. He has no shot after last night. Like I think he showed how much of an empty suit he is. And even though candidates like Pete and even maybe Kamala to an extent are similar, they were able to hide it with charisma, while Beto, you could see right through him, I think. And second was Biden. I would have had him number one, but I think there was a slight chance that we might be underestimating how loyal his voters are. Like maybe, some of the older Democrats are what he said doesn't bother them. So we gotta, so it may have destroyed his chances, but there's also that slim chance it didn't, whereas Beto has absolutely no shot left. And then for third, no one really stood out. Like I think basically all the irrelevant candidates could go here. I think I'm hoping a lot of them drop out. I'm not sure many of them will. But I think if I had to pick one, it would be Swalwell because I think he was super cringy the whole time, like his Russian NATO joke, and
Oh man.
all that, and then like the passing the torch comment, like people like Twitter and all that was kind of saying that that was a shot, but the way he said it, I almost thought he was like giving him a compliment. So like I couldn't really tell what his tone was, which is bad in its own right.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's noteworthy there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Swalwell definitely had his cringe factor turned up to 11 on that night. Because one thing I think is important to try and get on the stage, and why I was kind of disappointed we didn't hear from Yang at all, is you want to be a little bit funny. Because as much as we can hate Trump the monster, the showman put on at least laughs for the crowd.
Yeah.
And if you want to get people listening to the actual ideas, you got to at least be a little bit of entertainment first. But Swalwell failed on every joke he was trying to land that night. What do you think?
Klobuchar did too.
Yeah, I agree. Klobuchar
thought he
had
was
some fails
funny,
too.
too.
So, Justine, what do you think? Who are your bottom three from that night, or from both nights?
I'm going to go number one, Hickenlooper, for his comment on climate change, saying we got to work together with the oil and gas companies. Yeah, you definitely lost everyone. Whatever, and his constant attack on Bernie's platform, yeah, you've lost everyone there. Number two, Delaney, from what I've heard, is just constant interjecting, and not saying anything of relevance, was just poor and pathetic. And number three, Biden again, just because he might not lose the loyal oldies, but he's definitely lost the middle-aged voters who will go, no, we'll go with Kamala or Kirsten.
Yeah,
So that's what I do.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think everyone echoing Biden did terribly is spot on. Even his own campaign was in shambles. They were leaking information out to the press that Biden is simply not listening to their directions and he's stuck in his old ways. So I think Biden, I think is definitely the number one loser of the night. And even the quick reactionary polls afterwards have shown 10-point drops in his numbers. So definitely number one there in terms of the bad people. Obviously, I insinuated Delaney. I think he was one of those people where moderate Democrats are like, yeah, he's a moderate Democrat, he's a pragmatist. But he just came off as annoying, self-entitled, and this millionaire, multi-millionaire, he has 185 million in net worth. I think he's going to hurt his business from this too. So I think he had no shot of winning, and he's going to hurt himself personally from how bad he's been doing throughout this campaign. And then third, obviously, we can go between Beto and Eric Swalwell, who was really cringy. But I'm going to give it to Beto just because some people considered him like as a contender, but he went right straight down in any moderate's mind because he had little substance and there was more charismatic people on stage. I think
one thing about Beto
Yeah.
to add that made him another reason I thought he was the worst. I forgot. Is he might run for Senate, but I think he was so bad that if he stays on, he might ruin his Senate chances because like every time he talked, he comes off worse and worse.
Yep.
Yep.
I think
Yep.
I said that exact tweet at some point. Like, you're ruining your Senate chances, leave now. So I totally echo that sentiment. So now we're going to close out with what I was mentioning earlier in what I call the 3v3 section. It's going to be a set of multiple choice questions. They're policies from my platform, and you can only pick one or none of the above. I'm going to be sending this out to the fans after the episode and seeing who they would have picked and agreed with most from the answers we give today. So, you guys ready for this?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
So, the first one, here are your choices. Ranked choice voting, legalizing marijuana, or increasing the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. Ian, what would you pick? 1, 2,
Okay.
3, or none of the above?
Okay, so definitely ranked choice voting because that will affect all of those other issues. And I think the other issues are much more feasible in general. I think that we can get those passed a lot easier than ranked choice voting in general. So, yeah, ranked choice voting for me.
Okay. Leo, what do you think?
Wait, so which one is?
Yeah, which one would you want the most to prioritize?
Oh, okay.
And to
So
refresh-
like Ian said, ranked choice voting, it kind of unlocks everything else and is tied to everything else. So that might be, but I think like legalizing marijuana, like that's something that should have been done like decades ago. I think it's crazy that it's not, and so many like otherwise like nonviolent people are in jail for it, which their lives are ruined over this thing where like so many other legal substances are a million times worse. So, and the thing about $15 minimum wage is I think that's too simple. Like, I think it should also have to do with cost of living. Like, $15 goes a long way in some place and not enough in another. And then also with minimum wage, I think it should have to do with how big the company is. Like maybe something to do with like CEO to worker kind of ratio. Cause like Amazon, Disney, all that, it's great. Like it's great that they're going up to 15, but like some smaller companies, they might not be able to afford 15, so that might be hurtful there. So maybe if you had it tied to some other things, that I think that would make it more helpful to everyone.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So
In terms of most important, I would probably say legalizing marijuana.
Okay. And let's close out. Justine, what do you think? I know you guys already have ranked choice voting in Australia, so that might already be off the table for you, but that might also just be something you really want to preserve. So what do you think? Ranked choice voting, legalizing marijuana, or increasing the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour, or the equivalent, I would assume, in Australia is probably close to around 10 or 11 pounds. You guys?
Okay. first off, I would actually abolish your voting system and move it to a more European-style voting system, because the ranked choice voting here in Australia just pretty much just creates your system just with they have a little bit more legitimacy than your guys. Number three, that minimum wage, the equivalent here would be like $20 an hour.
Oh.
$20 Australian. But the funny thing is, we've got a very high minimum wage here at the moment, and the employers especially in the restaurant industry, get around it by paying people in cash and exploiting them that way. So it's a very bad problem across here. So my most important issue would be legalizing marijuana, just because if you legalize it up there, everyone else will follow suit.
Okay. We got 2 legalized marijuana and 1 ranked choice voting. Let's go now to the second question. So here are your choices. Would you rather have, this is obviously a figure more scaled for the United States, so Justine, bear in mind with me here, a $5 trillion green infrastructure bill over 5 years, a Medicare for all single-payer system, or abolishing fracking and offshore oil drilling? Ian, what would you go with?
Oh man. I think that I'm probably going to go with the thing that's hardest to get passed, which is probably the $5 trillion infrastructure investment. So I'd probably go with that, just because, Medicare for all is so close to being passed. I think within the next maybe like 2 or 3 election cycles, we'll actually get it. I think that when it comes to like a Green New Deal, that's going to be much harder to get done. And I think that along with the Green New Deal, you can do something like, ban offshore drilling and fracking. So, yeah, I think the $5 trillion green infrastructure plan would probably be my choice.
Okay. What do you think, Leo? Which of these 3 is the most important to you? The $5 trillion green infrastructure bill, Medicare for all single-payer system, or abolishing fracking and offshore oil drilling? Or none of the above. You're always allowed to choose that.
Right. Well, they're all important in their own right. If I had to put one that I'd want to focus on, is probably Medicare for all, because passing that would get rid of like immediate suffering, whereas like green infrastructure that's like 10, 20 years in the future, while Medicare for all is like people are suffering now, so that would alleviate that. So I guess that's why.
Okay. And Justine, what do you think? Green infrastructure, Medicare for all, a single-payer system, or abolishing fracking and offshore oil drilling?
I'm going to go with the green infrastructure, just because for the fact of the matter is, if you guys get that started, it has a flow-on effect across the rest of the world.
Great. Okay, so we got 2 for the green infrastructure bill and 1 for Medicare for all. So now we're going to go to our last question within this 3v3 segment. Would you rather have Roe v. Wade become a constitutional amendment? Would you rather have guaranteed housing by investing $20 billion into new affordable housing to supply homes to the 550K homeless individuals we have in our country? Or would you rather build a standard set of policies a country must follow for us to do a free trade deal with them, including environmental, labor, and civil rights considerations?
Oh man, this is a hard one. I'd have to say that probably the thing that would make the most difference is number 3, especially when it comes to the environment and stuff like that. I mean, climate change is such a huge threat. I mean, that would tank our economy once, places like Florida go completely underwater, the coasts, the East Coast and the West Coast starts to go underwater. That's like a huge problem for the world economy in general. So I think, if we got every country that we were trading with to sign on to, labor, something with labor rights and with environmental regulations and, everything else that comes with that, I think that would probably make the biggest difference on a global scale.
Okay. Leo, what do you think? Do you want to have Roe v. Wade as a constitutional amendment? Would you rather guarantee housing by investing $20 billion into new affordable homes for the 550K homeless? Or would you rather build a standard set of policies a country must follow for us to do a free trade deal with them, including environmental, labor, and civil rights considerations?
Right. So, in regards to number one, since right now Roe v. Wade is in place, even though there's a chance with all the Supreme Court changes that it might go away, at least we know there's a chance that it's safe now. I would probably go with number two, because homelessness is something I've always felt like was like a huge problem that no one talks about. Like, I think that should be right behind healthcare as a human right, with at the least bare minimum, like at least like a nice room and like a homeless shelter. I think everyone deserves that, even more so than education. At least free college. So I would definitely pick that.
Okay, great. And now, Justine, final answer of the night. What do you think? Would you rather have Roe v. Wade become a constitutional amendment, therefore protecting abortion rights for all women going forward in our Constitution? Would you rather have guaranteed housing by investing $20 billion into affordable housing for the 550K homeless individuals? Or would you rather build a standard set of policies for countries to get into free trade deals with us, including environmental, labor, and civil rights considerations?
I'd have to go with the homelessness one, because there's a couple of countries that already provide 100% free housing, and it's Finland and Netherlands, I'm pretty sure, and
Okay.
they actually say it has a massive economic boost and saves them a ton of cash. So that would help you out more than anything else, and that would give those homeless guys the ability to actually have the freedom to do what they want to do. So that's why I'll go with homelessness.
Yeah, I can echo all those sentiments. Leo and Justine going with guaranteed housing. I think it's really an economic problem too. When you're homeless, it becomes hard to actually contribute to society when you're worrying about just surviving. So I
Yes.
think mentioning Finland as well as the Netherlands, two countries that are in the top 5 of happiness overall in our world, I think is great. I know I'm actually going to be taking a trip to the 5 happiest countries later this year to try and do a documentary for that. So it'll be a really fun time to actually try and see stuff there. So yes, housing is a definite consideration, but global impacts can also be just something that can be truly transformative. I think if I was to go through the 3 personally myself, I would have to go ranked choice voting, the green infrastructure plan, as well as guaranteed housing. I think these are just basic rights people need, as well as preserving this world. I think we need to think on a larger scale, because our own dysfunctionality, like Justine has said, has ripple effects throughout this world. So I want to just thank all 3 of you for coming on today. This being our very first episode doing a Me Plus 3 segment. I really appreciate you guys doing this with me. So Ian, Justine, Leo, thank you so much. Do you have any final plugs you guys want to do? Ian, is there anything you want to shout out for the people that are watching?
Yeah, follow me on Twitter, at It's Canny Amble. It's just at It's Ian Campbell, with the I in Ian and the C in Campbell switched around. So yeah, just follow me on Twitter.
Great. Leo, got anything for the crowd?
Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me, John. This is a great experience. And one thing I would say is every progressive out there, donate at least $1 to Mike Gravel's campaign. He's pretty close to 65,000 donations. which would put him in next month's debates if at least two of the candidates drop, which could be pretty likely. And I think this is good because what is his whole goal since he's 88, he's not trying to win. He's just in there to call out the establishment candidates on their BS. So I just want him to go there and eviscerate Biden, eviscerate Kamala, all them, eviscerate Booker and all their on their bad records. So everyone who's listening, donate $1. He's pretty close to qualifying.
Yeah, guys, listen to Leo. I made this same request of you all during my changing the tones of politics. Get gravel in the debates. We all simply need it for the entertainment value alone, let alone the drastic change it's going to help with our Overton window. Justine, is there anything you want to close out with and tell the audience you got going on?
Yeah, first off, donate to gravel. I can't because foreign citizens are not allowed to put in your elections.
Yeah, don't do that.
So, but also just look at my blog, justinecaldine.blog. I blog about politics and all other stuff, so any views would be helpful.
That's great, guys. Thank you so much for coming on. And for the fans out there, make sure you guys are checking out this episode when it comes out, as well as the episode I'm going to be putting out on shifting us all to the 4-day work week. The labor movement has a need to keep pushing and getting us all that extra day. So make sure you tune into that, as well as also check us out as well on the Hill of Roses over on Twitter. You'll be seeing a bunch of our fun initiatives over there, including the Democratic primary polls, as well as the Senate debates we had been doing in our polls. We're going to be soon doing the anti-pod madness, where we're going to be calling out all of the worst. And we got so much more that we do over on those channels. So that'll do it, guys. Until next time, stay rosy.